Hey everybody, John Ray with Musing Wizard here, and we're going to talk about how you can outwit the devil. What is the devil in your life? Napoleon Hill wrote a book many years ago that outlined some success principles for how we can identify devils in our life and outwit them by focusing on the things that are going to make us successful, by doing the shadow work, and by moving forward. I actually haven't read this book, but I had a quick glance through some of the success principles. Karl Brockman here with me now is reading this book, and we're just going to riff on some of these principles. We want you to do the same in the comments. As we go through these, what do these mean to you? Is it something that you've engaged with your life for success? We're going to talk about how some of these principles have organically and purposely played out in our lives, and we'll try to build a template for how we can use some of these principles to get the things that we want and to live a meaningful life. So, Karl, how we doing?
Very well, my man. Thank you. I was inspired by your background change recently, and I thought, okay, what is my aim here? I wanna make a very important change in my life. So what I did is I sat my partner down and I said, look, Carl's, this room in our house is just not singing to me anymore. What can we do? And we together decided to burn our whole place down. And now I'm in a rent. I'm staying with my
I
cousins
see.
and my family.
And now you're calling in from a concrete room.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I actually got locked up, and then because of some pull that I have in Parliament, they've put me in a nice couch, at least for this podcast, and I'll go back to my cell. But thank you for introducing this topic today. Yeah, I read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich a few years ago, and for me, that was a very interesting way to truly understand how our thoughts and our thinking aligns to the reality that we live in. I read it at a time where I was doing a lot of deep work around that stuff. We've spoken about Jordan Peterson in the past and his influence on us, and recently picked up another book of his called Outwitting the Devil. And he, in this book, talks to the devil and maps out this conversation with the devil and asks him about how he captures the souls and the minds of people on earth and leads them to hell. And very interesting book, very interesting book. But these success principles came up again. His first book, Think and Grow Rich, was built on interviews with hundreds of the most influential and successful people across the States in the early 1900s. And from these success principles, he then boiled 17 soldiers of success down and maps them out in Think and Grow Rich. If you guys want to read that, very practical way to bring in these principles into your life. But that made me think, well, what are our success principles? There's 7 mapped out here that I'm excited to riff on with you, John, and very excited also to see what else comes out. What things in our lives have we found as principles of our success and that we're going to leverage moving forward. And to wrap all of that up into a nice little bow and to link this to a recent chat we had about your experience going to see Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson spoke about the importance of aim, and the first success principle that Napoleon Hill maps out is the definiteness of purpose. And that comes to me as, right, like, so in my mid-20s, catastrophe, I'm thinking about life. What is my purpose? What is my goal? The lack of answers to that big question really led to some nihilism, to some inaction, to some self-deprecation. And it wasn't until I guess, better understood, well, in the absence of purpose in the macro and understanding of the macro, I can still be much more purposeful with how I wake up in the morning, how I rock up to my relationship, how I rock up to my friends and family, how I rock up to work. And so I like the juxtaposition between purpose or definiteness of purpose in the micro and the day-to-day in our action. To be present is to be on purpose, as well as that, as it has for me, compounding interest to somewhat more of a macro purpose. Now, building a business with a very smart man, Andrew, where we help business owners really strike at the root opportunities and build scalable business models so they can work on their business and not get stuck in them. And then that was only able to manifest from me rocking up every day, thinking about the future, creating a map or a story in which it was worth walking the hero's journey towards. So obviously unpacked a ton there, John. Definiteness of purpose to you. Is there anything there that's new or that you would love to bring up as we enter into this conversation?
Yeah, well, we mentioned in our chat where Jordan Peterson was talking about aim, and aim and purpose are probably aligned in many ways. But having that definite aim or purpose as a guiding mark, as we spoke about, gives us kind of that's what we orient our emotional guidance system around. And so whatever we've identified as our purpose or our aim or our highest desire, when we're moving in a direction that is putting us in momentum towards that, we feel good. And when we're moving in a direction that takes us away from that, we feel bad. And so then it really the more dialed in our purposes, so that definiteness, that I know what I want, I know what my aim is, I know where I want to go. Well, the more that we can lock that in as a holographic vision that we can walk around in, we can see what kind of person do I have to be, like who am I in that reality where I'm living that purpose. That then gives us a deeper body signal or sensation that helps us orient whether or not the actions that we're taking are leading us in the right direction. And so the reason that having strong purpose, having that definiteness of purpose is powerful is because it's easier to hear loud signals, right? If we're really wishy-washy in our intention, what happens? Indecision. Indecision is always that we haven't really defined what we want. Because if we were being honest and clear about what we actually want, we would always know if something is a yes or no. And that's discernment. But discernment comes from, what do I actually want? Because that yes or no, that binary decision has to be in relationship to something. And the thing that it's in relationship to is the definite of purpose. What do I want in my life?
Yeah, beautifully said. It jumps right out at me again. That can be a really hard question for some to answer. It definitely was for me at one point in my life. What do I actually want? Right? Like, if you're one who's just been orienting themselves, doing their best, trying to survive, trying to be a good person, and then suddenly you get smacked in the face with a question like that, what do you want? Well, it can be quite weighty.
If that question is weighty, it just requires some sitting with yourself. The ultimate purpose is to be present. And if you're present, you're going to feel whatever you need to feel. And life is going to put you exactly where you're supposed to be. So you can take all of the pressure off by just feeling your feelings in every moment as fully as you're able to. And then it will be impossible to end up somewhere you're not supposed to be. Now, you have to really commit to that journey because sometimes you're going to seem like you're in a place that you're not supposed to be because it's uncomfortable, but actually it's exactly where you need to be because you needed to feel through that discomfort to become the person that you want to become. So this is not about how do I get the Lambo as quickly as possible. This is about how do I walk through a lion's den. And if you want to be the type of person who walks through lions' dens and is crowned second or first in command of Egypt, then feel your feelings fully. Lean into the discomfort. The only thing you have to do is be present with what's happening in your body. But sometimes that's a harder thing to do than just say that I want this thing. And that can also be a route, like defining material things that you want can be a route to finding what you actually want. Sometimes the material thing is what you actually want, and other times what you're seeking out is a more emotional desire, which is a sense of worthiness, a sense of wanting to be seen in a certain way, a sense of wanting to be accepted. Material possessions are not always, but they are often used by people in a lower consciousness as a proxy for, oh, if I had the Lambo, then the girl I like would look at me. If I had the Lambo, then people would respect me. Well, the desire isn't actually for the Lambo, although the Lambo is cool. I'll take one. I saw a video of a Lambo off-roading the other day, and I was like, yep, that's the way to do it. That's how you know you really have Lambo money, is when you're willing to take it off-road. So if you want the Lambo because it's so fun to go fast and you love having that kind of power like under your control, then yeah, I get it. But if you're getting it because you're hoping that people's telepathic projections will shift, then what you actually want is an emotional desire and not a material one.
Yeah, beautifully said. What I found with myself and a few of the blokes that I've worked with is that even that aim of the Lambo is such a good place to start. Even though it might be a proxy for something deeper, money is a big one, right? And why do we really want money? Well, we want freedom, we want autonomy, we want security, we want status. Like you said, all of these sort of rooted things. But if we can't identify that and acknowledge that straight away, it's still great to go for a Lambo versus not aim for anything at all. We spoke about nihilism, and I remember one thing that was a smack in the face when I was thinking more seriously about the future of my life. It was getting very clear on what I don't want. If I continue to rock up each day like I am right now, what does that lead to? Because most of that is what I do not want.
Yeah.
And that really helped create the answers to the other side.
Yeah, that's a great cheat sheet for finding what you want, finding where your purpose is. Okay, well, I don't want my girlfriend to be mad at me. I don't want to feel like an idiot every day. I don't want to feel like a loser. Okay, so what's the opposite of that? Feeling like a winner, having a girlfriend who respects me, being in a healthy relationship. Pivoting and just taking the contrasting side of the things you don't want is a really interesting way to find language around what you actually want.
And this links to the second success principle that Napoleon Hill outlines, So, okay, we know what we want. We have a definiteness of purpose, or we're building that, right? Like that like us and like our being, we evolve, and our ideals, our purpose, our aims, they evolve too. So how do we best orient ourselves towards these things once we have this aim? Well, it is to master ourselves, and again, mastery isn't something that I rock up tomorrow and I'm like, oh, yep, I'm done now. I'm cooked. Turn the oven off. I'm ready to go. It is something that we build over time. We evolve towards, right? And I'm curious about this because, you're slowly getting me there, John, to feel my feelings. You're almost, after 30 episodes, you've almost convinced me to feel my feelings. Napoleon Hill speaks about, or in his conversation with the devil, he asked the devil, well, what are the three most important things one needs mastery over? And I don't know if the question was exactly phrased like that, but the devil comes back and says, well, one needs to master themselves over food, over sex, and over loose opinions. And then the rest of the things that they need to master themselves over will flow on. They'll become easy because they're the three hardest for people. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, what are those base level desires is what I would call them. So it's like root chakra desires, like sexual, greedy, lustful desires, like animal desires. And so those desires are what keeps us procreating in many ways. But they're also the same desires that were the reason our forefathers only lived to be 40. And so you have to decide, do you want to be a hedonist or do you want to be an evolved soul? And ultimately it's up to you. I mean, there's plenty of people who choose the path of hedonism, and maybe that's an experience that they needed. I mean, personally, in my 20s, I chose that path and it was amazing, but only up until a certain point, right? Like, as I look back on it now, I would never want to go back to it. But I was coming from a place beneath hedonism. And so for me, it was actually an evolution. Like I was coming from complete incompetence, complete unawareness, absolutely no understanding of who I was as a person. So knowing myself in hedonism and having a sense of my body and my sexual energy, which then I later realized is my creative energy, well, that was an interesting part in my evolution. Would I ever go back to that lifestyle? Absolutely not. Like, looking at it now, it disgusts me in many ways, but I remember when it didn't, and it was awesome at that point in time. And so everybody is where they are. And the goal isn't to jump from the bottom to the top of the ladder. You go one rung at a time. But what you have to constantly be looking for is, am I ready to evolve beyond this? And do I have a strong enough vision? Somebody who's a hedonist is often rooted in some kind of nihilism, like the future doesn't matter, so we might as well just do whatever we want now. And that is somebody who lacks the tools to have things. They may be really good at creating things in the moment, like I was in my 20s, but I wasn't good at keeping anything, relationships, material possessions, locations, like constantly moving around. Like I wasn't good at having things because I wasn't good at holding a long-term vision. And once I became good at seeing and holding a long-term vision, that definiteness of purpose, well, then what happened? All of the sudden, my emotions were oriented towards the long-term vision. I was no longer living in a state of nihilism. And because of that, I had a different emotional relationship with those same actions. And so you know, loose opinions, what is that? That's gossip. The Bible also talks about gossip. Why? Because people who are gossiping fail to realize that it's an energetic feedback loop. You're tying yourself into a drama cycle that is going to continue to net poor results. So that, like, gossip is the bad fruit in the bucket that ruins everything else. You know, and other base level desires, you know, things that I'm putting into my body, so food, but I would say any biochemical adjustment, alcohol, drugs, food, all of these things that we use alcoholically, whether we're calling it or not, they what are they doing? They're obfuscating what we feel. Why do I eat the sleeve of Oreos at night? Because I don't want to feel the depression that I have. And yet the paradox is, if I would just sit there and have a good cry, I could move past it. I would tap back into my creative potential. And so, you know, I think that this principle, the way that I read it, without having read the book, is just at some point you need to evolve beyond your survival instincts. And the way that you do that is through definite of purpose. It's by having a bigger vision, because those animalistic instincts will fire differently. You will have different emotional guidance once you've built a bigger game, a bigger picture that you're aiming for.
It also makes me think about, we've spoken about this a few times in the past, and I feel as though depending on our current state of survival, we can only see or map out so far into the future, right? And so again, like if it's not landing for you that, oh, have this big grand vision, yeah, great, I'm happy as to write $1 million and a great house and a dream girl and a Lambo and an ATV and 4 kids and my own marijuana farm in a shed, whatever your vision is, right? Like if that's not real to you, if you don't have that emotional relationship with it, then of course it's not going to orient you. And so again, if that activity or that strategy isn't something that lands for you, what does a good day look like? You know,
Yeah.
like if you were to just wake up tomorrow and just have a great day, what would that look like? And then what 3 things can you do today just to make that happen? You know, so again, it's a rung of the ladder thing. You'll step toward it. I am curious though, because gossip obviously seems to make a lot of sense once you're able to take a step back and garner some awareness about yourself, your relationships, and the circles that you run in. You see gossip quite clearly as something that just drags everyone down, you know, and gossip generally is a projection from the person gossiping based on some things that they're dealing with. Sex has been one that I've been thinking a little bit about as I've dived into Napoleon Hill's work. You know, in their philosophy, they talk about sex transmutation.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, porn seems to be a really big opportunity for our youth. You know, the abundance of the availability of it online, and how easy it is to flex that muscle and not develop, I guess, a sexual relationship in person. Does sex transmutation for you? Is that akin to that creative potential that you're wasting by going to porn or going to these vices? I would love, having someone who hasn't read the book or looked into it.
Yeah. So it's like a gun, right? it can be used for good or it can be used for evil, and so ultimately it's your intention around it that determines whether it's good or bad. I'm not going to say that porn is bad, but it can be bad, just like a gun can be bad. There's a lot of things that can be bad, and depending on how you engage with them, you might skew more towards a negative relationship. If you're using porn to cover up the fact that you can't get a girlfriend, or no one in the real world wants to hang out with you, and so you just lose yourself in pornography and live in a fantasy land, and don't ever have to orient yourself to a bigger game than the fact that you already have the girl in your phone, well, you're never gonna get that girl. So if you want to have a meaningful relationship with someone, you need to decide, like, what is the type of person that you want to energetically tie yourself to, because when you're masturbating to pornography, you're quantum entangling yourself with the energy of those people. And so whatever's in their field is now you're creating an opening for their emotional trauma to be in your field now, and so they become that energy becomes a part of your feedback loop, and so then you start to attract things that are relational to that, and so if you're in a hedonistic lifestyle, and your primary goal is to have sex with somebody different every single night, then I totally understand that. And there's a way that you can actually use pornography to build polarity, where you're kind of using it to arouse yourself, but you're never completing the act. And you do that to build the sexual energy, kind of to rise it's a hack to rise the Kundalini. And then you're just this sexually charged being that's just oozing with, it's just like putting Sex Panther cologne on. 69%
Works
of the time, it
100% of the
works every
time,
time.
60% of the time.
There's actually a whole practice of sexual polarity called natural grounding, and one of the things that you do is you use images of women that are high vibe energy in order to raise your sexual energy, and to kind of charge your sexual field. But here's the thing about doing energy work like that. It is very short term. You have to constantly renew your batteries, and it isn't you. You will attract people who aren't you, and eventually you're not going to want to have to do that work every single day, which is what you have to do to maintain that. And so it is a house of cards that will eventually crumble on you, and it is the result of not having a long-term vision. It works fine if you're just trying to find somebody for one night, but if you're trying to find a life partner, you need to work on who you want to be the rest of your life, not who you want to be over the next 5 hours that you have this energy charge. And so it's an interesting experiment. I wouldn't tell anybody not to do it, because it is an interesting experiment to understand how your own energy systems work. However, it can very easily put you into a dark place, and you can become predatorial in your energy, and so it's part of shadow work, right? Like with shadow work, you're allowing yourself to go to dark places so that you know what you're capable of, but then that now makes you capable of choosing something differently. And so I don't know how that addresses, or even what the question was that you asked, or how I got on this subject, but I just didn't want to outright condemn pornography, because it's the way that you use pornography. And there's plenty of people that have they're artists. They tastefully photograph people. So are we calling that pornography, or is the pornography just like the complete lack of awareness and lack of intention when we're releasing this energy into a field that we haven't identified what it is? Like, one of the reasons that the Bible is very clear about limiting sex until marriage is because there's an understanding in the underlying context of that that anytime you're having sexual thoughts about someone, you're intertwining your energy field with them. So now not only do you have to do your own emotional processing, but you're emotionally processing everybody that you saw on your phone because in that sexual act, you're linking energy with them. So all of their trauma becomes your trauma temporarily. That's a bad place to be creating from. And so you just have to recognize that, and you can get sensitive enough in your energy that you will recognize it when you do it. But you have to recognize that what you input into your field becomes a feedback loop that attracts things into your life.
No, beautiful. I'm glad I asked you that somewhat butchered question and got to learn a little bit more about your perspective on sex and the role it plays in our psyche and in our physiology, you know, to better understand that not only can these things be destructive if they are just based on those survival kind of base desires, those animal desires, but also that it essentially anything that we bring into our attention is the opening of energy into our field, and that makes a ton of sense for me. I'll just have to make sure if I'm looking at women that they've been brought up in a good home. I'll definitely make
I mean, it's not a bad idea if you're gonna do it, actually.
Hey, can you please send me your mom and dad's?
What you're always wanting to do is feel your feelings rather than project onto a woman. Because of course they're more sensitive, they're more intuitive, they're gonna feel it. And so what one of the things that you can work with polarity is, I don't want this whole conversation to become about natural grounding, but it is an interesting practice. One of the things that you're practicing is being able to be present with the energy field of a beautiful woman without projecting sexuality onto the situation, because then that makes you a gross person. You need to be, nobody wants somebody who's so weak that energetically they're just spilling their seed over the second that they see someone. You need to be tight enough in your energetic container where you can control yourself like a freaking man. And so it's a muscle, and it's something that you can strengthen. And you know, one of the things that you can do to get out of pornography addiction, it's called nofap, but you just take 30 days and you don't masturbate, you don't have sex, and you will immediately realize how addicted to yourself you are. and that addiction will control you until you become stronger than it.
Just like a food addiction, just like alcohol, just like all of those things, just like gossip, you know, drama you've spoken about in the past, how you seem to get caught up in drama sometimes, you know, and that can be a form of addiction too. It's just 6 more questions on natural grounding. No. We'll move to the third success principle, and we speak about this quite a lot, you know, on the Musing Wizard channel, and that's learning from adversity, right? And the principle is quite plain, I think, for people like us and people that have similar self-development journeys, is that any failure, any trauma, anything in our life, there's an opportunity to alchemize, to learn from. And one of the devil's pieces of advice for fixing the education system was that we need to teach kids that failure or missing the mark isn't ultimate failure, it's actually part of it. It is important. We need to learn from it. So I see the alchemy reference, you know, to alchemize our base metals into gold. Anything from you that's coming around learning from adversity and how it might relate to natural ground, and how it might relate to some of the things we've already spoken about?
Yeah, well, let's look at entrepreneurship, since we work with a lot of entrepreneurs and we are entrepreneurs. Who wins in entrepreneurship? We know that 97% of businesses, small businesses, fail over a 5-year period. So who are the 3% that win? They're the ones that are persistent. They're the ones that keep getting up. They're the ones that embody the spirit of Rocky. You know, they're the ones that can get hit and keep going, keep getting up, keep moving forward. And so how do you do that? You have to be willing to see and feel what's happening in your body without assigning a story to it. So if you fail and you're like, I'm such a loser, how could I do this? Oh, I feel so bad. I ruined things for my investors. Like, yes, you're having those feelings. You need to embody those feelings. You need to integrate those feelings because wisdom is packed into the encryption of those feelings. But if you're consistently spinning a story about those feelings rather than recognizing that's just energy, dude, you can call that whatever you want. But at a wide enough level of awareness, you're just noticing energy. You happen to be attaching language to it that doesn't serve you, but the way to handle adversity is, ooh, I feel that in my body. Thank you. That's something that I know on the other side of it, there's a message for me. I know that there's wisdom to be integrated there. And so then you just sit with it. And sometimes it takes an hour, sometimes it takes 20 minutes. Sometimes you think it's going to take 5 hours, but it only takes five minutes. Like it's one of those things where we are wildly inappropriate in our expectations of how long certain discomfort will be in our body. And if we can just become present with it, it will work itself out. And the discomfort is always a sign that the solution is in your field. That's what it is. It's the solution entering your field, but you haven't encrypted it yet. And so it feels uncomfortable because you're so close to it, yet you can't see it.
Oh, so interesting to think about. It's not the first time you've spoken about the feeling, the emotion, the uncrypted energy being the solution. You just need to decode it. You know that just it can be so hard to grasp. How could this weight be actually the solution that we need? And again, that for me is how I understand alchemy. It's not only your past trauma and how you're able to transmute that into gold, but it's also the energy, the things that knock your physiology, that vibrate you, that potentially reorient you, or you prescribe them to an existing story, like you said. The devil talks about hypnotic rhythm, and this is how he captures 98% of souls. You know, he leads them and seeds them down a path of thought until that thought perpetuates and compounds interest and builds momentum until it becomes hypnotic rhythm, which can't be broken. And Napoleon Hill asks him how his opposition, which is what us human folk, us earthbound folk call God in a lot of ways, uses hypnotic rhythm. And he suggests that, well, that's what faith is. You know, it's a story, of a positive story or thought pattern of hypnotic rhythm. And as you develop a relationship with faith, with God, with the universe, with yourself, and you continue to, okay, this problem in my business is just a part of this positive story to my definiteness of purpose. You know, it's of course that this fire is set alight at this stage of my journey. It was never going to be easy. It wasn't going to be a straight line that I just skipped and held hands with my loved ones through a flowery field. You know, of course this fire was going to be a part of it. Before we jumped on, you mentioned just something that came up in your life that shook some emotions, and I love how you respond every time. You're like, good. you bastard. Of course it's good. Yeah, anything on hypnotic rhythm that you might add? I don't know if it's a term that you've heard before, but how does that sit with you?
Well, I mean, the term that I use all the time is feedback loop, right? So whatever you're thinking, you're going to keep thinking, and it compounds interest, to use a term that you use a lot, and wherever your attention is where you're spending the currency of your energy, and so the more that you spend that currency in a wrong direction, the more that you're going to get unprofitable results. But the more that you spend that attention currency in the right direction, the more that you will yield dividends. And you know, it's like I'm thinking about like Bitcoin mining or crypto mining, and for those unaware, like in crypto mining, basically crypto is an energy arbitrage, and so basically you have a supercomputer that you build that is burning energy in order to solve a really complicated math problem, and it's not going to get it right the first time, and so the Bitcoin miners that that win, that get the Bitcoin, that solve these equations are the ones that consistently go back with more and more computing power. They learn how to optimize. They learn more efficient energy sources, and then, you know, the way that the Bitcoin code works is every 4 years the math equation gets harder, and you earn less for it, and so then you have to build an even smarter computer, and you have to get even more efficient. And that's exactly how life is. Like, you have to consistently keep going in, and if you're learning from your actions, then no action is a wrong action. But if you're unconscious to your actions, and you're unconsciously doing things, then every action is devolving you. And so you just have to kind of adopt a 1% better a day mindset, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna fail all the time, but if in that failure, just like an AI machine learning system, I can find optimal solutions, then ultimately I will accelerate beyond everyone over a long enough period of time.
Yeah, those failures are just part of the foundation in which you build your empire, should you
Right.
learn from them.
And we should look at it the way a machine learning system looks at it. The machine learning system doesn't say, "Oh, we failed 9,000 times." It says, "We successfully computed 9,000 pieces of data to find a more optimal solution."
Oh, that's gold. That's gold. I was just imagining the computer. Oh, shucks. Uh, I wanted to come back to you. You said something quite beautiful. You said where your attention is where you're spending your currency of energy. And I think that's a beautiful segue to Napoleon's fourth principle, which is controlling your environmental influence, right? And he poses that, well, there's three parts to this. Like with the human is our mental, our physical, and our spiritual. So before I dive into a few things that I've obviously prepared, tell me what it means to you, John, to control your environmental influence. How do you do that? Why is that important?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is that your environment is dictated by your choices. I'm only in this room because I chose to be here. So wherever you are, don't think that you didn't put yourself there. Like, there's a decision tree that led you to where you are. So your choices are always to blame. Not that we should be blaming things, but like, if we say, who should take responsibility for me being here, it's always you. Because you chose the things that you chose that got you there. And sure, you might be completely ignorant to what those choices are because you haven't expanded in awareness enough to know what the hell you're doing with your life, but you still made the choices. And if you had a deep enough awareness, you would be able to very easily draw the breadcrumb trail back to what decisions led you to the situation that you're in. And then you could extrapolate from that. Maybe I could make different decisions next time. And so environment is always dictated by what's happening inside of you, and the decision space that you see on the screen of your brain. What you can actually choose in each moment is a direct relation to what kind of trauma and drama do you have going on in your nervous system, and have you actually balanced that out. And you will be unable to see optimal choices for yourself if you haven't balanced that energy, if you haven't actually felt through that as sensation. And so you may be like, oh, life is so unfair. I always choose what seems like the best choice for me. Well, that's because you're not actually seeing the optimal choice, because you're refusing to get present with yourself long enough to feel through the discomfort that's preventing you from seeing that optimal side of the spectrum.
Beautifully said. And again, I just see the evolution. It's a journey to develop that attunement and to better orient yourself through your experiences, through your failures, through everything that has led you to this room right now, to me burning down my house and having to find a new place to live. It's a couple of the things that jump out at me when I think about mental, physical, spiritual. Physical, I've just got Jordan Peterson in my ear saying, make your fucking bed, make your bed, make your bed. And yeah, on face surface, yeah, well, how is making my bed going to make me successful and happy? Well, I personally like a clean room. it makes me feel a little bit
Right.
better about myself and
Also,
my
if
situation.
if you want any kind of meaningful relationship with a woman, they're gonna want a clean room. So
Well, depends on
we're
which one you attract, John.
we're already moving in the right direction. If you ever want to be able to Airbnb a place, they're gonna want a clean room. Like you can extrapolate that in a lot of different directions. But what it does is it trains you to do the hard thing first thing in the morning. It's one of the reasons that Wim Hof's cold showers. There's so much hot debate on oh, there's actually no scientific evidence that cold showers do anything. Shut up. What a cold shower does is it forces your brain to choose to do a hard thing first thing in the morning, and then you become somebody who's willing to do hard things. And guess who gets hired? The people who are willing to do hard things.
Well, there's no evidence that to suggest that hard things make you more of a man and more successful.
Actually, there's a lot of evidence, sir.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah. Well, I googled it and I couldn't find anything real quick. No. So yeah, I definitely beautiful extraction from that, and then I go straight to the mental and the spiritual, right? And again, the feelings, the orientation, the attunement to your own energy. Is definitely how I see that spiritual manifestation of controlling your environmental influence. And then again, it's almost like it's a mirror, or it's a cycle, right? Like the better you attune, the better that you curate your environment, your universe, as we've spoken about in previous chats, then the better that'll evolve and match your internal,
Right.
and vice versa.
And your external is an energy flow. You're just interpreting it as physical reality. It's actually an energy flow. And so you can study things like feng shui, like how to appropriately set up the architecture of your home to have optimal energetic scenarios. And to somebody who's unattuned to subtle energies, that seems so silly. But for somebody who's attuned, it absolutely makes sense. The second that you walk into a house that has proper feng shui, you're immediately more relaxed in your body and feel more comfortable and confident and just at ease, versus when you walk into a place that is incredibly chaotic. And we don't even have to take it to that level of subtlety. Go into a hoarder's house versus a minimalist house, and which one do you feel more chaotic in? Which one makes you feel more at ease? Obviously, the one that is clean, that is tidy, that has space, is going to put you in a mindset that is optimal. Where the hoarder's house is going to be a shit show and might be a temporary drama draw, but you wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah. Again, like we could bring that even higher up to the surface, and just a cupboard that's organized. I know where the things I want are, right? Rather
Right.
than having to open this cupboard and things have fallen everywhere, or I'm in my office and I don't know where the paperwork I need is. So
Yes.
absolutely, it makes sense that 100% influences your psyche, your internal monologue. I also think about now the feng shui of people. Like the feng shui of people, your external environment, with the people that you associate with, and
Mhm.
how much that they influence your thoughts, your behavior, your patterns, your story.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to think about it, because that is part of it, right? Like you're choosing into the Venn diagram of their field, and so if they're not flowing optimally with you as well, then you're having an energy lag. They become a node in your network that isn't operating very well. And it's one of the things in Napoleon Hill's other book, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about forming your invisible council as kind of a way to use your term, which I like, to change the feng shui of people in your life. So, okay, maybe I don't have access to anybody who is conscious, who has an expanded awareness, who is thinking directionally in the direction that I want to go. But I can think about people. I know that Benjamin Franklin is. I know that Elon Musk is. I know that Jordan Peterson is. And so I can make those people part of my invisible council. And what am I doing? I'm creating energy overlap with them to build a node for my life that then goes and moves in the right direction. I'm building the feng shui of people that is going to call in the right opportunities. And it's one of the things that's so valuable about being in a mastermind with people that are just a little bit more successful than you, because you will be called up to their level. And if you create an invisible council with people who are wildly successful and you genuinely let the imagined version of them give you honest feedback, you will elevate yourself because you know what you're doing wrong through the eyes of them. You know what they would tell you. And so you have to be honest enough with yourself to actually take that feedback that you gave to yourself.
Well, I guess it'd be silly of me not to point out that you can actually do that physically too. You know, with the power of the internet, you spoke about in a previous chat, the power of Connect, right? Like a small investment for you to actually hear the opinion and the thoughts of this person and bring that into your world. You also spoke about how beautiful and purposeful it is for you when someone asks you for your expertise, for your experience, for your thoughts, and how great it is for you to be able to give that back. You know, if you're telling yourself a story that, why would anyone spend time on me, or why would they share their time for me? I'm not paying them. I'm not helping them in any way. Well, what does that say about you personally? Do you not spend time with anyone if you're not going to get something out of it? Might be worth exploring, but it is just a story, right? And a lot of people that have done a lot of hard work are very happy and willing to be able to provide any support or guidance. I think that was actually in the answer that you gave me on Connect, which I really appreciated. Shout out John Ray Connect, $10 to get all the wisdom in the world. I'm gonna just quickly rattle off the last three, and then I'd love to ask one more question to tie this up today. But before we do that, let's see if anything jumps out at you from the last three. Number 5 is time, and we've referred to time around the hypnotic rhythm, the feedback loop, compounding interest, evolution. You know, things take time. You're not going to wake up tomorrow perfect, but if you wake up tomorrow with a new inspiration, and then you wake up the next day with a new inspiration, and then you might miss a day, but then you wake up the next day with new inspiration, how does that compound interest? And I think patience being a very important virtue there. You know, I still struggle with this sometimes, right? You're in a new project or a new journey or a new adventure, and you're like, just hurry up, like, get here. I know it's inevitable, but just get here.
Yeah.
And I think expectations that come with the lack of patience create a disparity in a disposition.
Yeah. And so I think people who are impatient, and everybody is, I am all the time for small pockets of time.
Yeah.
And why am I impatient? Because in that moment, I'm not being present. I'm too focused on the future, and I'm not in the present moment. And I'm not focused on the fact that everything has a gestation process. You cannot birth a child in 1 month, or it's not going to be good for anybody. You need 9 months to birth a child. And there's no getting around it. That's just the laws of physics at work. And certain goals have certain gestation processes tied to it. And so to beat ourselves up that we don't immediately have something is neglecting the fact that there is a gestation process to certain things. And we can choose to have a miserable pregnancy by constantly, putting things we shouldn't be putting into our body, and talking crap about the people around us, and saying nobody supports us. Oh, I'm in this on my own. Constantly making the worst of things, telling a story that of course I'm the one having a bad pregnancy. Or we can say, you know what? I'm so glad that I get to learn about myself in this way. And what an interesting experience for me to like merge energy with my creation, and to really understand it at such an intimate level. And in these early stages, this is the only time that I will understand my creation in this intimate of a fashion, because as soon as it's truly birthed into the world, it's not going to be mine anymore. It will be its own entity, and our nervous systems won't be connected anymore. So, wow, what a cool opportunity for me to enjoy the fact that I get to intimately understand this thing, and dream and hope and plan for its future, and set it in the right direction, knowing that ultimately it's going to take on a life of its own, and it's going to do what it does. But I can go to yoga in order to reduce the birthing pains. I can learn proper breath work. I know that these foods are the best foods for me to be eating in order to have an optimal experience. How good of me to have chosen a partner that's so supportive in this. It's the same experience of pregnancy, but it's completely different experiences because the frame is shifted. The way that you're thinking about it is shifting, and the story that you're telling is shifting. So everything has a gestation process. You have to recognize that you're always in one for something and just allow yourself to be there. How can you optimally be in gestation? You find presence.
Try drinking whiskey on the first day. That is oh. No, beautifully said. Yeah, incubation, digestion period, absolutely. The second last one, harmony. It's the harmony of the mental, physical, and spiritual. I think about the same sort of buckets that all of the success people today use is health, wealth, and relationships, which are great guideposts, right? If you want to just go all in on wealth, yeah, great, you might get somewhere, but you'll find that the harmony of the other two mean that wealth
Yeah. Well, and
evolve.
good luck creating any meaningful wealth without
Yeah,
relationships.
without relate. Yeah, right. And it lasting without health. Yeah. So well said. I mean, the last one is caution. And I think this links perfectly to discernment, and what Napoleon Hill speaks about all the time is the relationship between the definite purpose as well as the plan in attaining it. Bob Proctor speaks about this a lot. Bob Proctor has a great book called You Were Born Rich, and he speaks about as soon as you get really clear on what you want, what is the plan? It doesn't have to be a perfect plan, but what is the plan? Because that gives you the steps. It simplifies it. It makes it easier to walk towards it. And as you said, there's no such thing as wrong action when it's towards the aim, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you win or you learn. But
Sure.
any action not towards an aim is what? It's what?
Yeah,
John, finish my sentence.
it's wasted currency, right? It's wasted. It's
Yeah,
wasted
nice.
energy. So yeah, we're playing a game of infinitudes here. Like if you believe that you're a spiritual being, you're gonna go on for forever. But in this incarnation, you only have about 120 years max in if you really play your cards right. And so what do you want to get done in that? Like when do you want to check out of this world? What do you want to have done? Because ultimately, like, that's the video game, is what can I create in this context of time and in this 120-year gestation period. Yeah, you can go on spinning through the universe forever, and you could do nothing in this life, and actually there's a spiritual premise called loafing that I think is a pretty beautiful thing. If you can comfortably do it, why not do it? Like if you're tight in your energy, you serve as an energetic node, and so maybe you do what Eckhart Tolle did, and you just sit on a park bench for 3 years, and you're just in deep appreciation of everything around you. And what happens is you become such an efficient node for that frequency of energy that now you're a messenger. So who's to say that doing nothing isn't the right choice? What a wrong choice is when you beat yourself up for it.
Thanks for smacking me in the face at the end of this podcast, John. One last question. One last question I'd love to ask you is, that's a pretty comprehensive sort of list of things for one that wants to be successful to consider and consciously work to bring into their lives. Uh, Reflecting on your life, John, I don't know if you would call yourself this, but I'm someone that might put you in the bucket of successful. If I was to be somewhere like you are at 40, I don't think I'd be too unhappy. Are there any success principles that come up for you that we might not have covered in these 7 by Napoleon Hill that are worth sharing?
Oddly, the thing that comes to me, maybe because I was just talking about loafing, is you have to have an ability to relax. Like, you have to be someone who knows how to find relief. You cannot be wound up all the time, because burning the candle at both ends is such a misuse of energy. It's such an inefficient use of your personal energy. And so you have to recognize that in renewal, there are dividends because in renewal, you're more capable of taking optimal actions that have leverage on them. And so you can constantly be busying yourself, and you can constantly feel like, well, I gave it my all today. I worked another 18-hour day. But if you weren't making optimal choices, then it's like trading with negative leverage. Like you just have a decreasing efficiency, where if you can be somebody who can find relief, and part of finding relief is just, if you can be present in each moment, then nothing ever feels like work. It's not an energy spend, because energy is efficiently moving through you and doesn't get trapped in your system. The reason that we get tired is because, like, too much stuff gets stuck in the craw of our nervous system, and then we're inefficiently using energy, and so relief, relaxation, meditation, like getting back to the present moment, is so incredibly valuable. And it's like, when you're able to be present for a long enough period of time, and then you make a choice, it's like taking your money and putting it on a sure bet in the markets on 100x leverage. Your actions will just be infinitely more profitable. And so it's one of those things where you go slow in order to go fast.
Can't think of a better way to end. John, thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed unpacking those with you.
Yeah, anybody listening still, let us know who the devil is for you in the comments here. For me, it's definitely poor thinking. It's thinking that isn't actually aligned with my optimal intention. And I would love to hear who you feel the devil is, and how you order yourself in order to engage with the devil successfully. Karl, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention, and we'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.